When I watch movies, I always like to try and take away the most out of them. The more I can take away from a film to better myself and my understanding of life and the human condition, the better the movie is in my eyes. Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind is one of those movies that sound self-contained enough on the surface, as it deals with only a handful of elements that it uses to tell the story of mainly two characters who meet, fall in and then out of love, and decide to erase their memories of each other as a means to cope with that. There is a bit of science fiction added to explore their relationship by literally manipulating their brains, but it doesn't really distract from the core, simple narrative of this film being about memories and navigating a romantic relationship. Now, despite that, there is still more value that we can extract from this movie that goes beyond this relationship and touches upon themes that are universal. It is at the time a movie about relationships and love, but also life as a whole. In the very beginning, the viewers are introduced to all the aspects that will be tackled throughout the runtime of the film through the internal voice of Joel. They're presented to us as random thoughts, but they're not really that random, and every one of them will be serving a purpose and answering a question by the end of the movie. Let's start with the first thought. Today is a holiday invented by greeting card companies to make people feel like crap. Joel here is referring to Valentine's Day specifically, but in reality, it's a thought that foreshadows one of the broader subjects of the film, which is the commodification of humans' emotions. In the same way that greeting card companies invented Valentine's Day to turn something intimate into a business and a means to generate profit, Lacuna Inc. also created an entire business to manipulate something as delicate as our memories of those who we love. So after all, we are not diving that deep into the realm of fiction through this enterprise, since the concept is already present in our real life. In a world where humans are able to erase memories, corporations like Lacuna existing would be absolutely accurate. Another thought that sets a question that the movie will be trying to answer is Joel stating that he doesn't know why he's heading to Montauk. The film, of course, will answer that question in the most literal sense, as we learn by the end that he had a whole relationship with Clementine before erasing his memories and had her tell him to go to Montauk during the process, and that answers the question of why he was going to Montauk. A more subtle question to answer here, though, is why he had to meet her again in the first place, and more generally, why do we meet certain people and feel instantly attracted to them? Is there a pragmatic and material explanation to that, or is it just impulses that have some sort of spiritual roots? Again, that's something that the movie will be thoroughly exploring. The question was followed by him saying, "I'm not an impulsive person," and that foreshadows the dynamics in his relationship with Clementine, which become clearer when she literally spells out the fact that, in contrast, she is an impulsive person, making this a case of opposites attract.
I'm not an impulsive person.
This is extremely relevant since this contrast is at the core of the movie's conflict. It's the reason why Joel and Clementine get attracted to each other, but also why they eventually break up. On the same note, the way Joel was presented to us as a whole informs us on his motivation. He looks like a lonely person who needs to feel something through someone else, a girlfriend, and that's his primary reason for seeking and staying close to Clementine, and ultimately the reason why they get separated as well. A very subtle line that points to that is the one where he brings up the possibility of getting back together with Naomi. This indicates that, to Joel, all of this is about his attempt to fill a void. That is something that Clementine does not want to partake in, and at some point, she explains that to him, and in a way explains to us as viewers the reason why they ended up separated by the end.
Too many guys think I'm a concept, or I complete them, or I'm gonna make them alive.
Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind is a movie about the subjectivity of perspective. It's clearly told through the point of view of Joel at the beginning, as we literally hear his internal voice, but even more so when we enter his brain and go through his memories. The fragments that we see sit somewhere between what actually happens in reality and his subjective perception of those events. That's especially applicable to his relationship with Clementine. We gain a better understanding of their dynamics when we see how he perceives perceived her at the different stages of the relationship. In the latest stages, Clementine sounds unbelievably and almost laughably annoying, reflecting the exaggerated image Joel built of her in his mind during their arguments. And by contrast, she also sounds unbelievably nice and likable the moment we step into a memory of her that's positive in the eyes of Joel, and those are mostly at the earlier stages of their relationship. The narrative choice to tell their story in reverse chronology mirrors the way we perceive the things around us and then form our judgments about them. Joel starts from the end of the relationship and then all the way to the beginning because his most recent memories are the strongest, and so they're the ones that are fueling his feeling of resentment. And that's a part of our human nature, isn't it? That can apply to literally anything in our lives and not just our relationships. It's so easy for us to only stick to the latest of memories and impressions to form our judgments while dismissing everything that precedes them. The experience that Joel goes through helps him see the full picture and put everything into perspective. He learns not to fixate on one single memory or moment that feels too positive or too negative, and instead try to see all of it as one single piece. Now, Joel had the chance to concretely relive these memories and slowly start to soften and regret his choices to erase those memories, but any one of us can get that full picture through introspection. The takeaway from this movie could be to learn how to adequately reflect on our lives and make decisions that put everything into perspective, since as humans, it's so easy for us to get trapped in the most subjective and narrowest of points of views. That's why it's so important to always remember that the way we see reality is so heavily relative and dependent on what goes on in our minds. Joel and Clementine meet again and feel attracted to each other despite the terrible things they hear themselves say about each other in the recording. So these are the same two people, the same physical bodies, and even the same personalities, yet the way they see each other completely changes, simply thanks to what goes on in their minds. Through this one relationship, the film also explores the complicated connection that exists between our memories and our very being. One question that it tackles is whether we are more than just our memories. This concept that Lacuna Inc. develops comes out of this assumption that our existence and the existence of others is only tied to memories, and it takes that a step further by connecting memories to concrete objects. All they had to do was get rid of the objects Joel and Clementine associated with each other and erase any memories that can be triggered through these objects. The implication here is that memory is primarily material. That's an assumption that the movie debunks through the character of Patrick, who tries to use these same objects and those same rigid elements that are believed to have created the relationship between Joel and Clementine in order to seduce Clementine, but then he miserably fails. The point the movie tries to make here is that memories are immaterial. They're more than just the objects and the words and the pictures we associate with them. Instead, they're a combination of all of these things unseparated, impartial to their temporal and spatial context. Trying to erase them or displace them or create them outside the time and space where they initially existed will render them meaningless. That's the lesson that Joel learned, and because of which he changed his mind and decided to keep his memories of Clementine and treasure them as they are. At that point, he realized how valuable they are on their own, and how they're more than just trivial things tied to one relationship and can be thrown out the window whenever things start to go south. He realized then that those memories are important enough to keep whether he was getting back together with Clementine or not. What the movie tries to get across here is that memories are not the only things that define us or others, and that answers the question. We are not just our memories. That is a point that was made even clearer through the ending, which is also the beginning of the movie, where Joel and Clementine end up together again as if they're destined to, proving yet again that erasing memories will do little to nothing to erase the bond that is determined to take place between them. There are a few ways with which we can interpret this point depending on our beliefs and approach to life. From a more pragmatic point of view, this impulse that attracts them to each other can have a relation to their brain or body chemistry, or with their deeply stored memories of each other that didn't go away with the erasure of the material things associated with them, and that explains why they looked familiar to each other. That's why Clementine asked if she knows Joel, and he made eye contact with her instantly despite saying he couldn't make eye contact with people he didn't know. In this case, he did that because deep down, he actually knew her. Through their meeting, the film is even more likely to be insinuating that there is something spiritual to their love, or a supernatural power that pushes them towards each other. We don't know how true that is, in the same way that we don't know what's going to happen with Joel and Clementine after the movie ends. And for a story about something as tricky and complex as memories, ending the movie on an open note like this sounds about perfect.